Hey Mike, thanks for letting us interview you or letting me interview you. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're
So,
very welcome.
so one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, what do you want us to know about you, both personally or professionally?
Well, that's a pretty broad question, and I don't really know what would be of any great interest to anyone. But I guess all I can say is that I have practiced the profession of pharmacy for nearly 5 decades now, and I've done that quite um, quite well. Not just my opinion, but just from uh, information that I have from state boards. I've never had any complaints against my practice or any actions taken against me. So that would lead me to believe that I practiced well within the guidelines of acceptable practice, and that now that I'm running for mayor, I would take that same uh, care in practicing as a mayor.
So what position are you running for? And well, you said you're running for mayor, but what do you know about the responsibilities?
The responsibilities of being the mayor. Well, the mayor of West Wendover would be the chief executive of the city of West Wendover, from what I understand, and I will pretty much learn the job once I get elected. And that I think in any job, until you actually become the, in this case, the mayor, wouldn't be much different than when I became a pharmacist and became a pharmacy manager. You don't really learn the job until you're actually in the job, and then you find all the nuances and all the little pieces to doing the job well. And that, of course, I would have to learn from the people that are already serving the city council members, Chris Melville, who is the city manager, the legal counsel that we have, and so forth.
So why were you interested in running for mayor, not any of the other options like city council or the county commissioner, but why the mayor?
Well, the reason I chose that position was because I had people ask me uh, in the uh, in the county. They said that we needed to have a candidate for mayor in West Wendover, and they thought I would probably be the best candidate for that. And I felt that I could I could do an acceptable job as mayor. I think there are things that we need to look at down the road to help the city out. For instance, things like we're going to see more and more electric cars. Now, that's something that may not be real obvious, I'm at least not as quickly as we might expect. And once that happens, and many of these are going to also be self-driven cars. Now, they already have a program in Phoenix, Arizona, where a company runs uh, self-driving cars that people call, and they can have them come to their door and pick them up and take them to work and so forth. And it's all done without a human driver. And you look at our population here in West Wendover, I think that's something that we certainly should look at from the city's point of view for the residents here in West Wendover, because we have a number of people who don't have driver's license, that don't have cars, and so forth, and it really would be helpful for them to be able to do things like grocery shopping and going to the clinic and so forth. And so I think that's an area that probably within the next 4 years is a very real probability for the town.
So if you are elected, what are things you'd like to accomplish or change within our community?
I'm not too concerned about any real any serious changes and so forth, I think the main thing we want to do is maintain the city so that our roads are maintained properly, which they are. Again, it's as I mentioned with the possibility of us having driverless electric cars in town, something that may come up before the end of the next 4-year term. That we certainly would want to investigate. We do have people who are Lyft drivers. I don't know if we have any Uber drivers. And of course, we have the Tawana taxi. But there are things that we need here in the town for people who can't get around without the use of transportation that they can purchase, and that and just to do their daily routine.
So what are you offering our community that hasn't been offered before?
I'm not so sure that I'm offering anything that they haven't had before. I think we've had good leadership in West Wendover over the years. We've certainly had, I think, some excellent city managers, and our mayors have, I don't really know what most of our mayors specifically were responsible for, other than the fact that they are the chief executive officer for the town, so they would have been required to sign and approve those projects that the city council approved of, and many of those things were actually done more from the city manager's office, because the city manager generally finds most of the funding so that we can do many of the things that we need to do. Since we are a small town and we don't have a exceptionally large tax base, though we do get quite a bit of money from the casinos, but the property taxes and so forth aren't as a big a source of funding as they would be in larger cities and towns. So we have to look for federal funds, county funds, and federal funds. It was one of the reasons why I was very active as a member of the 2020 census and making sure that we got counted here in West Wendover. I also was busy counting people in northern Nevada, from Fallon to McDermott to Jackpot to Wells, but most of my time was spent in West Wendover. And I got involved in that specifically to make sure that we get as many people counted as we possibly can, so that when we do go to counties, state or federal funding, we can say, you know, this is our population, and get the appropriate amount of money allocated to the city of West Wendover. Things like fire trucks, and ambulances, and road maintenance, schools, the healthcare center that we have. All these are programs that we can't really support with the population that we have. So we do need to get funding from outside of the city.
So there's a school board meeting a week ago about students going back to school. What's your opinion on the whole situation?
That's a pretty tough question to answer, because we don't want to have the children of West Wendover in a position where they will be exposed to COVID-19. But then we also have I believe, a responsibility to try to get the children back into schools on a regular traditional basis, because I think that's important in the educational process, that they actually go to classes and interact with other students and so forth in the classrooms. Virtual is certainly a good way when you can't have the traditional experience in the school, but it doesn't really replace it. And I think the sooner we can get our children here in West Wendover back into classrooms, that will be better for them. I talked with one of the principals. It was at the last city council meeting, and we talked about that. It's one of those situations where there are going to be situations where no matter what you do, there are going to be consequences you're not going to like. And if we get children back into the schools too soon and we have a rise in the COVID-19 infections, then that's not going to be good. But there are ways that can be handled when children do go back into the classroom. Of course, there'll be the situation with wearing face masks and hygiene. You have to wash your hands regularly. You can't have a lot of physical interaction between students, which at younger ages, that's not necessarily an easy thing to prevent because it's natural for them to be close to one another in situations. So I personally, I think we need to leave that question to the principals and to, I think, the teachers in the schools who understand the students much better and how they might be able to prevent them from spreading COVID-19 while they're back in class.
So what do you think is the most important issue that's going on in our community now or today?
I think the most important issue is COVID-19. We need to make sure that we keep everybody healthy, that we can keep the casinos open because they're the source of the major source of employment here in town, major source of income for the families, and that is very important as well. We unfortunately we can't live without employment. We can't live without a salary or a wage or a paycheck. So that we have to keep that always in mind. And I know that it's been hard on many of the families. I'm active in the community and in other organizations, and I hear frequently the concerns people have because employment has not been what we're used to, and especially in the casinos where many people are dependent on tip money, that has been considerably less than what they're used to.
So our community, or West Wendover, has been known to be active with drugs and drinking. Do you share those views, or what's your opinion on it, and what can you do about it?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the first part of that.
Our town, our community, West Wendover, has been known for the drugs and for drinking. What can you do about it? What's your views on it?
Well, drugs and drinking. Well, that's you're right. That's always a problem. I think no matter what town you're in and what decade you're in, that is unfortunately one of our human weaknesses, to be seduced by alcohol and by drugs. I pretty much take the approach that parents certainly have to be very vigilant in watching their children to make sure that they don't get involved with drugs and alcohol, and that the parents are aware that they have to show restraint in the use of alcohol, and certainly they can't be using any drugs illegally either. It affects the whole area of family life and the social life in the town, and it has a negative effect. There's a program that was started many decades ago by one of our first ladies, and it was Just Say No. Now that seems like it may be an oversimplification on how to control drugs and alcohol abuse, but if we teach children and adults, for that matter, to just say no and to understand that that is the simplest answer and it doesn't require an explanation, You just say, no, I don't care to drink, or no, I don't care to do drugs. So please don't ask me to do those things.
So what's been your strategy for campaigning?
Well, my campaign has really been almost non-existent. A lot of people already know me here in town, and the main strategy on my campaign was to just let people know that I'm running, knowing that there's somebody else besides the current mayor, and so if they feel that they would like a change in the mayor's office, that I'm running, and that I'm at this point the only alternative on the ballot for them. I think I'm a good alternative, and I appreciate everyone's vote that cares to vote for me.
So Mayor Corona has established many relationships, going from family, friends to senators and so forth. How do you manage to keep those relationships?
How would I manage to keep those relationships? I have a pretty good relationship with a number of people in political positions throughout the state and throughout the nation. I've had those relationships since the 1980s. I don't necessarily go into any detail with any of that, because most of those relationships are, I wouldn't say they're private or something that I care to keep as a secret. It's not, because politics certainly is not a secret organization. We know from with the press and everything else. But I have people that I can go to for looking for help in any of the areas really that we may have need for input at another level of government than just the city level, to address city requirements, funding, and so forth. And generally, the way you maintain those is pretty much the way we're doing things now. We do it on the internet, emails. Used to be that most of the ones I established were done by snail mail. You wrote letters. But that's all changed in the last 30, 40 years.
So with you and Mayor Corona running, why do you think you're the better choice for this position?
Well, that is a good question, and I don't know that I'm necessarily a better choice, but a different choice. I do think that I have a lot of support throughout the state, but in the political background that I have, my support would be with people that are not currently in power in the state of Nevada. So that certainly wouldn't make me necessarily a worse candidate or a worse possibility for mayor. It would just mean that we'd look at things a little differently. I generally like to think of the most important way to handle any of the requirements that we have for social programs or help in the city activities is best handled as close to the local level as you can, and try to keep it as far away from being absorbed by federal programs, because they're being determined in Washington. They're not being determined in Nevada. I think the people in Nevada have a much better idea of what they want and how to get what they want than somebody in Washington, D.C., or for that matter, even somebody in Nevada, but in Clark County. because Vegas is a very different world than what we have here in rural Nevada.
So that's all my questions that I have. Ms. Durham, is there anything you'd like to add?
Oh, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I think you asked me some good questions. I had to think.
I'm telling you, Fawn is the next Barbara Walters
There we go.
of our times.
Wait a minute. Who are you?
That's none of my business.
She could be on 60 Minutes or PBS or one of those stations. But no, I just would, Mike, like to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come and visit with us. I know I have known you. You're one of the very first people that I met when I moved to this community. We're neighbors, so we are on the same street, and I see you out in the yard mowing your lawn. And
what?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait. First of all, you're not gonna speed past that like you didn't just say what you just said.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
And I just appreciate your commitment to our community. I appreciate you taking the time to make time for my kids, my students, who are doing just a terrific job navigating the world of online learning.
Well, when life gives you lemons.
And Fawn, I want to congratulate you on concluding this round of your political journey of interviewing the potential candidates and nominees. And Mike, what we usually like to do when we sign off is we just want to give you the last word. If there's anything that you would like to say to the voters, we'd like to give you the time to do that now, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up.
Well, I really don't have anything too important to say.
Okay.
I'll just say this. When I get off of here, I'm going to be climbing up on the roof to drain the swamp cooler. And if I fall off,
Oh my God!
I'd like everybody to know that if you find me on the front lawn, that you just make sure you call somebody to give me a hand.
Help me! Help me!
But I'm not planning on falling off the roof.
Nice.
Well, we really hope that you don't fall off the roof either. All righty. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it. This wraps up this edition of Fawn and the candidates for the 2020 election. Everybody, please remember to get out and vote November 3rd at City Hall. Does not matter who you vote for. What matters is that you show up and you use your voice, exercise that First Amendment. Your voice is your most powerful weapon in saving our democracy. November 3rd, vote.